Yeah, so welcome to the Madison Tug Q3 meeting. I'm very excited to be here and hear what we've got for you today. My name is Jeff. I'm one of the leadership team. And with me are the wonderful Olivia and Jen. And Robert had a conflict, but is also with me now. And now if you're keeping close track, you might notice we're one down. So John Westbury decided to step down, and we totally get it and had a great conversation. We really appreciate all of his contributions for the last year or so, and great ideas, great enthusiasm, and just really loves data and Tableau, and it shows. And so we'll still be seeing him around, but in different capacity. But I will make a quick pitch. If anyone's interested in talking about being on the leadership team, just like let myself and one of the other leaders know, it's informal chat, even if you don't consider yourself a Tableau expert, we value all perspectives, and yeah, you just kind of need enthusiasm and kind of do what you say you're going to do. And as long as you can do that, you can talk.
And go with the flow.
Go with the flow. I love it.
Crises happen.
Yeah.
Go with the flow.
Totally. And yeah, so doing the welcome right now, and we're going to talk about a new event series that we're launching today. What's that? Oh yeah.
That's not the right remote. You need to plug in like Ben's plugged in.
Okay. Well, there's nothing to see yet anyway. We're talking about a new event series that we're going to be, today is the first instance of, and we'd love your feedback on all that. And then Benjamin here is going to talk about Tableau Next and kind of the future of the platform and where things are going. And our very own Ben is going to do a Tableau tip on Tooltips. And if you don't already love Tooltips, I'm sure you will. And if you already do, I'm sure you'll love them more. And then we're going to do wrap up, swag giveaway. You should all have a number. I don't, but you should all have a number on your badge for our fun bingo hopper. And we'll also be doing a virtual giveaway for folks on the call. And then, yeah, after that, got some games, just mingle, network, got snacks. If you need snacks at any point, we've got lots of snacks and stuff. Cool. And I guess you can't see this cute image, but the lending library is a thing. And so we've got a great collection of data, data viz, business development books, got stuff on statistics, all sorts of stuff. Really great resource. And it's free to use for members. And so just, we ask that if you take it out, you kind of try to read it and bring it back. And if you're cleaning out your collection and you've got some books that might be suitable and you want to donate, like we would love to have them, or even just to borrow. But yeah, that's a great resource to have. And okay, for this new event series, I don't think it'll come as a shock to anyone in the room. The tech and data space is changing rapidly, right? AI is here whether we like it or not, and everything is changing seemingly overnight. And so we thought it might be useful to talk about it. Where is analytics going? How can we grow with it? What's Tableau's vision? Because this is a Tableau group, but also, what's the role of AI? What's our role in this continuing to evolve landscape? And what does this mean for the future of analytics in our work? And, whether you're, firmly established in your career or just starting out, it's a conversation I think we all need to be having. And so we've got some ideas, some panels we want to put together. And so if you're interested in talking about that, we'd love to have you. But also if you have something you'd be interested in hearing about, oh, this is really keeping me up at night. What are we going to do about this? We'd love that suggestion. And we'd happily go from there. But yeah, so hopefully that's a nice series that everyone enjoys. I think it's going to be great. I'm excited for it. And yeah, so without further ado, got Ben here, and I can do a quick intro. I'm using my phone because I don't have my notes on the screen. Benjamin Goodman is a principal analytics solution engineer at Tableau and Salesforce. With over 25 years of experience in data analytics, Benjamin has worn many hats, including developer, admin, architect, platform lead, manager, and engineer. His passion lies in leveraging better tools to collect, transform, and understand data. He holds a degree in visual art and actively participates in the art community in Chicago, where he lives with his wife and 2 children. Tableau has allowed him to merge his love for data and art and share this passion with the incredible individuals who drive state and local government, enabling us to act on insights to improve our communities. With that, turn it over there.
Cool. Well, thanks for that introduction. As Jeff mentioned, Benjamin Goodman. I am Principal Solutions Engineer at Tableau. I've been at Tableau for about 4.5 years. Before that, I was a customer, like many of you. I decided about 4.5 years ago I wanted to be on the other side and get to play with all the toys and go around and talk to folks about what we were doing in this space. As we get started here. Next. We always throw this up there. If you've been part of a Salesforce or Tableau presentation, you've probably seen this. What this says is if you're thinking about buying something from us, buy it based off the things that are actually in the product, not the things that will be in it in the future. We always do our best to push out new features. Sometimes development stuff doesn't roll out on time, so we don't want you to make a decision on something and then have to wait a few extra months for it to show up. Anything that's future-facing, though, I'll be sure to point that out to you as I go through what Tableau Next is all about. And of course, we always say thank you for showing up. It's so good to see so many of you here. There's some familiar faces and some new ones to me. As Jeff mentioned, I work with state government, so a bunch of the agencies here in Wisconsin, and we've got a few folks from the agencies in the room today. And why are we here talking about Tableau Next? What's wrong with Tableau? Tableau's pretty good, right? Like, what do we need? What else could we possibly do here? Well, we're kind of entering, depends on who you ask, the third wave of agents or AI, right? And it's funny, if you ask like ChatGPT, it'll give you like 3 different answers for which wave we're in. But there's waves, right? There's multiple waves. The whole idea is that as these new features come out and we adopt them and adapt them, we further that capability to have a conversation with an agent or something that's autonomous and have that help us build out things, take action on things. So how do we take that and apply that to what we're doing with analytics? So before we talk about the presentation layer, which is what we usually think of when we think of Tableau, we do need to take a step back. And those many hats that I wore in the intro, I spent a lot of my career just in the space of data, not even dealing with presentation layer, visualization, any of that, but just in data. And how do we take that and make it actionable? How do we take it and make it understandable? One of my common challenges was I would always talk to my C-level executives when I was back at Tribune and tell them, this is what our data is telling us. And they'd be like, I don't understand any of that. Well, Tableau was one thing that gave me a window into it where I could take it, turn it into a visualization, put it in front of them, and they could go, oh yeah, that's bad. And you're like, yeah, that's what I've been saying, that's bad. But it gave me a way to communicate those things. So part of this as well, it's not just what we do at that last step, but what happens before we ever get there. How are we organizing that data? How are we bringing it all together? So when we talk about Tableau Next, there's a lot more to it than just the presentation layer. And we're also going to talk about data cloud and data semantics. So I hope I don't put you to sleep with that. I find it really exciting. Not quite as exciting as visualizing that data, but really important in what we're doing. And why is that important, right? This is where we're going to bring in our business context, right? I can put data in front of you, and a lot of times it'll have obscure names, things that might not be human readable, and I might reuse words. I might say cost a bunch in my database, right? What does that mean? How does that apply to me? And one thing you find too is even when you're dealing with the same data for the same big group, everybody has their own unique view of it, right? I found out really quick when I left Tribune and I went to Motorola. I came in and they said, we've got all these reports, we want you to bring them together. I said, cool, all right, I can do that. I've got control here. I know exactly what it should say. I'll bring all this stuff together. And the first thing I heard after I did it was, well, that's wrong. And I was like, well, that's exactly what your report says. What's wrong with it? And I learned you can't put the same thing in front of all these different people without the context for what it is. So when we talk about the semantic layer, this is a big part of what you're doing here. You're building that context for what we're doing. You're going to build standards around metrics and KPIs so that everybody's on the same page. You're basically building the definitions for what your data means. So with Tableau Next, you're all familiar with Tableau. So, you can go out to the site, you can download the trial, you can run on your desktop, cool, you're off to the races, you're connecting to Excel, and, you're starting to visualize things. Tableau Next is designed around taking data that's in Data Cloud in the Salesforce platform and leveraging it there. Now, there's a lot of good reasons to put it there first. So as I talk through this, you'll kind of see some of the advantages to what we're doing here. But the whole idea is to take that data, make it actionable, and put it in a place where we can have standardized meetings around it. So as we go through this change, what are we talking about? We're really talking about the transition from traditional BI to agentic analytics. What does that mean? We have an agent driving this stuff, right? It's no longer all hands on the controls. I'm doing every single thing. Instead, I'm leveraging some of these GPT capabilities to help me build out what it is that I want. I'm asking questions and it's going, okay, is this what you want? Cool, okay, go forward with that. So we're still in charge, right? We're not taking our hands off the wheel completely, but this is helping augment what we're doing, helping us to get there faster. So that is Tableau Next. That is our mission, right? That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to bring in some of these AI capabilities. We're leveraging data in Data Cloud, building a semantic layer on top of it. I want to talk a little more about all of these things. And then we're visualizing it and taking action on it. Because if you paid attention to the last couple of years, we've updated our mission statement. We help people see and understand data. But there's a third thing now. We help people see, understand, and act on data. And this is where that action comes in. Now, you can do these kind of things in traditional Tableau. There are capabilities to leverage things like URL actions, integrate with flows inside Salesforce, things of that nature. This has it built in natively. So instead of manually building that stuff out, it's going to work out of the box when you're using Tableau Next. The whole idea here is to get you to those insights faster. So I mentioned those layers. We're going to come back to this slide quite a bit just to keep track of where we are when we're talking about this. We have our data layer, we have our semantic layer, and we have our visualization layer, and then that action layer. Those are those four that I just talked about. And then on top of that, you'll notice analytic skills for agents. What are agents? Agents are agents that exist in the platform that leverage AI. So think about like a chatbot, but a chatbot that can do a lot more than just chat with you. So with that, it can go out and it can leverage all of the things that we're doing here to help you do something in your platform. So if we have a Service Cloud platform, for example, I'm taking cases in. Maybe I've got a 311 center. People are calling in. That's where all my stuff is logged. I can, first off, collect that data, understand what it means, visualize it, take action on it, and then say, hey, agent, can you go do this for me? Maybe I need to send someone out to address pothole issues, right? And I want to see where that concentration is. That's something that I can ask an analytics agent to do for me. And then off to the side, we've got our marketplace and our apps. Those are kind of common things that you're going to be able to reuse. I'll get a little deeper into those. Before we dive into that, data layer. So at the very beginning, the most important thing, our data, right? There's a percent up here, a lot of people, right? They have applications that are disconnected. This is just kind of a fact of life. I think forever we've been in this world where we've been chasing that like one source of truth idea, and I don't think it's unattainable. I think we just need to shift how we're thinking about it, right? Because all these applications are built for specific and different things, or we wouldn't have all of them. What we want to do is bring all of those together in a place where we can use that data and then do something with it. So where do we bring it together? Hey, Jeff, where do we bring it together?
Right here.
In Data Cloud. Yeah, Data Cloud's everywhere. So with Data Cloud, what are you getting? You're getting something that if you're using Salesforce, it is baked into the platform. So it's already there for you, right? This is something that you can connect to anything that you've already got in Salesforce. So if you're doing stuff like Service Cloud, Marketing Cloud, you can bring all that stuff in. But also, I'm not using that stuff, I don't care about it. I've got Snowflake. Cool, you can bring that in too. Any data source that you have, you can leverage here and bring it all together. So when you think about Data Cloud, I know we kind of like shy away from it a little bit, but I would tend to use words like data warehouse, data lakehouse, next-gen data platform, whatever you want to call it, your central place to go access all this data. And when you think about things like Snowflake or Databricks, that's a lot of data. I don't want to move that around. You can use virtual connections here. So you're not actually moving stuff into Data Cloud, you're just enabling Data Cloud to leverage it. So you have a central place to go access it yourself. But the important thing here is we want to make sure you're not driving up costs by moving a bunch of data around that you've already got somewhere else. So Data Cloud is kind of the center of that. And when I say virtual connections, that is that zero copy, right? It means we're not copying stuff from here to here. Instead, it just is going to point back to that source data so that we can use it all in one central place. How does it work? Well, as I mentioned, anything you've got Salesforce, you've got business apps. I'm sure most of us have Workday or SAP. I mentioned Databricks, Snowflake, AWS, maybe you got stuff in S3 buckets. Wherever it is, you can bring that stuff into Data Cloud, harmonize and unify. What is this? So as we clean up that data, right, we start to look at across the broader system, what is my customer? What is my citizen, right? I might have, they might have a fishing license, right? But they might also be applying for some kind of government aid. Those are going to be completely different systems, but this is a place where I can bring all of that together and give people one place to go for information and start understanding who my folks are a little bit better and what services they need, what services they don't need, right? So if I've got specific segments that I want to group together, we mentioned segment and predict. If you're not familiar with the marketing terms, segments are kind of like groups of people in specific categories. I can utilize that to identify a group. Now, this is especially important if we're thinking about things like marketing or outreach, whether that's in a private company sense or public. It gives me the ability to know who my audience is and reach out to them directly. So when you're using tools like Marketing Cloud, as an example, now I can pull in that segment and say, you know what, send all these folks emails. I know that if you're in this county and these are the services you have, there's a high likelihood that you also need this service. So tell me all the people that are there that don't have that and let them know about it. So this is all about getting us better at the things that we do. And then this last step, activate anywhere, right? I mentioned the Salesforce platform. We're all part of the Salesforce family, so we talk about that a lot. But you can take this and leverage it wherever you work, right? So if I want to put this back out in something like Workday as an example, I can do that. So you're not just tied in. If you're familiar with one of our competitors in the space, they have a Fabric solution that looks a lot like Lock-in to me. I won't go too deep on that. Maybe if we have drinks afterwards, we can talk about it. But we don't want to lock you in, right? We want to make sure you can leverage that data wherever you're working. So that's Data Cloud. Before we move on, I'll show you kind of what the interface looks like for Data Cloud, just to get a sense. Now, the whole idea here, this is not designed as DBA tool, right? This is not something that you're going to go deep on. I used to be an Oracle DBA, Postgres DBA, MySQL, SQL Server DBA, you name it, right? At one point, I was deep into all those platforms. This does not look anything like that. The whole idea here is to make this easy so that I can create streams of data, bring that data in, and then build out a model around that data. So with that, we'll just go to our home, and we can see we have a user interface that's pretty friendly, right? It's showing us, here's my data stream. What is a stream? It's data coming in from somewhere. If I want to create a new stream, I can go out to my data streams and add that here. I'm not going to do that because this is a demo environment and other people use it, they might get mad at me. But essentially what we do is we just point to the sources that we want. If it's already in Salesforce, super easy because, hey, we know what it is. We point to it and say, go ahead and load this in. I've got like Marketing Cloud, and I want to see all those segments, right? Pull all those folks in, their case history, what emails have been sent to them. You can pull all that in just by pointing to those objects and saying, create that stream. Once I do that, it will create data lake objects, and you can browse through all those here. Here we have our citizen service request Dataverse, which we will look at a little deeper coming up here. But this allows me to go in and just see what's in there. So when I'm searching for data, wanting to know where I have something, I can do that here. And then I can model that data. And of course, it's going to be slow. What the models do is allow us to say how this data is related. So when I'm bringing in things from multiple sources, I want to establish a relationship, similar to what we do in Tableau with a data source. I can do that here. Now, the advantage of this is that once I do that, I don't have to do it again. When I bring this into Tableau Next, all those relationships come with it. So when I come in, I can say, this is what I want to use for my data source, and it knows how all that data is related. With that, we're starting to get into the semantic layer, because that's where we define what our data is, how it's connected, and what it means. Has anybody used a semantic layer before that they know of? It's a trick question, because if you're in Tableau, you've all used a semantic layer, you just didn't know it. The semantic layer is just where we define the data, right? So if you've ever gone in and renamed a field in Tableau, that is essentially a single-use semantic layer. The big difference here is this is a semantic layer that you can share, you can reuse, and you can create alternate versions of. I mentioned at the beginning how when I went in, I built out that awesome dashboard of everything and then found out, oops, like everybody has different ideas about what the same data means. You can create all of those views here, all of those different semantic layers on the same data, but for each individual object. So it's tailored to them, their needs, and their definitions. And then, since you have it all here too, you can go and see what people are looking at, how people view their data, and how they differ in what they do. So when someone asks you to build out a dashboard, you can come in, take a look at those semantic layers and go, okay, what's the view that you're taking of your data? Which one is the appropriate approach to take? So this is where semantics get really important, because when we start talking to AI, and I go out and I ask GPT, hey, I got a presentation on Wednesday. Can you help me get ready for it, right? It needs to know the details around that. If I tell it, I've got all this data out there, I need a dashboard, it can do that for me. It can start to help me build that out. But without the context around what these things mean, it's probably not going to give you the right answer. I think the biggest challenge that we tend to have right now with a lot of these AI agents, if you use ChatGPT, if you're using Gemini, any of these, is that we tend to leave us a lot of stuff out when we ask questions as humans. We assume that you have institutional knowledge of this thing I'm talking about. You know what I mean. And we don't fill in all the details, which is fine between humans because we usually do have some kind of context, or we go, wait, what? And then we ask the question. AI is usually so happy to fulfill your needs, it will just make stuff up. Right? So we don't want that to happen. We want to be very careful that whenever we put data out there, right, data should be immutable. Data should be something that I can take, and it should not be, you can always interpret data, but at the end of the day, there should be solid facts that are established. We never want something to be made up. So this helps us establish what that language is that we're talking. When we go out and ask it, hey, I want to see all of my accounts by revenue, right? What does that mean? Revenue in the last year, revenue of all time, revenue in the last week. What is revenue? Net revenue, gross revenue? There's a lot of questions there. This is where we can answer those questions so that the next time someone goes out and asks it, they get the answer that they're looking for. So Yeah, this is kind of I guess a little bit of a cheesy example, but the bridge between data and insights, right? Think about farm to grocery store. We have our raw data here, and here's our prepared vegetables and fruits at the store that we're gonna go pick up. It's all data, right? It's all the same stuff, but this is the context around it. So this is gonna allow us to enrich that data, and we're gonna use that in Tableau Next, but also this is gonna be stuff that you can use in your other applications as well, because now that we've established what these things mean and what kind of definitions we're gonna use for them, we can use those in other reporting tools if we're connected there. We can use those back inside our applications as well. And with AI too, Salesforce is very into, we want to put agents out there to help you, right? If you need help, we want to be able to make it easy. So with that, think about what data all of those agents are potentially using, because that's going to come from the same place. And this is part of this whole idea, right? This unifying factor of we're all working off the same set. We're all in the same universe. We want to be careful about creating individualized presentations of things. We want to make sure that everything's repeatable and shareable. So, unify and scale trusted data. This is key, right? We want to make sure that this is something that you're not going to have to go in and repeat every time you create a new dashboard or asset or ask a question from an AI agent. We want to make sure it's reusable. Accelerate time to insight. I mean, we always talk about this, right? We always want to do stuff faster. I want it now. I want it right. I want to make it easy. And then enrich your agents with business context. So that's that AI piece that I was talking about. Gives the context for what it is we're asking them to do. And this is kind of a general look at how semantics work. Basically, we're sitting on top of data sources, which have connections in our data layer, and then we build semantic models on top of that. That's where we define what these things mean. On top of that, we also have metrics and goals, and then predictive models, so that when we look at this, we know in general, when I ask for something, what it is I'm asking for. So our favorite layer, the visualization layer, yeah, we made it. So you're familiar with Tableau, and you're like, Tableau Next. This is the next version of Tableau, right? No, it's not. Tableau Next, and I want to be clear on this, is a different code base than Tableau. Now, why is it called Tableau Next? Because what we've done is taken a lot of the elements that everybody likes in Tableau, optimized it for AI and Data Cloud, put it in the core platform here, so it's all sitting in the same space, and then that is Tableau Next. So when we think about this, you're going to see a lot of similarities with what you have in Tableau, but it is not a one-for-one. So I do want to just put that out there that this is a change. It is a shift from what we're doing, but change is the only constant. So we want to make sure that we're giving you something that is the latest on the bleeding edge of what we're doing, which is why we're pushing this forward and including things like all of these agentic features. Two key things that are going to be in Tableau Next, that when we look at it here, visualizations, we're all familiar with those, and metrics. So metrics, that word's been around a long time. What do we mean in this case? We're specifically talking about pulse metrics. Is anybody using Tableau Pulse right now? No. Okay. So
Sorry, Ben.
it's all right. I understand. So if you're in Tableau Cloud, you do have access to Tableau Pulse. And what Pulse is just a way to have a conversation with your data and get high-level metrics, and to do it proactively. So instead of having to go out and look at a dashboard and intuit what's going on, figure out what's happening, this gives me a way to have Tableau give me kind of a heads up. Now, what I'm talking about so far is still in our classic version of Tableau. It's just in Tableau Cloud, though. So if you're on server, sorry, that feature's not there. But it will go out and it will look at our data that we've added here and say, what's changed the most? So as that data gets refreshed, it's proactively looking at that for us and calling that stuff out. We'll look at Pulse in just a second here, and you'll see what it looks like. The reason I asked if anybody's using it is because I mentioned, there are some differences with Tableau Next and Tableau. Pulse is nearly identical. So if you're using that feature, it would look exactly the same. And let's go ahead and take a look at Tableau Next. So what I have here is a dashboard built in Tableau Next and then embedded, in this case, in Service Cloud. So I can see a dashboard with some basic visualizations in it. I've got a scatter plot down here. I've got a list of details. We've got a donut chart up here. And of course, just like a normal Tableau, this is all interactive. So as I click on these, it will update the corresponding visualizations and charts. Now, one thing that's a little different, if you're not familiar with the metrics, these are Pulse metrics embedded directly into my dashboard. So you'll notice they're giving me an overall trend and then a little blurb about what is going on in these metrics. We'll take a deeper look at metrics in just a second here, but know that these also can be used as interactive elements, just like they are here. And it's just another way to get insights to your data. Now, one thing I want to call out is I mentioned features straight out of the box. So when you have things like case records in this case that it knows come from Salesforce as a Salesforce object, cool. You want to open that case? You can go straight out to that case record just by clicking on that and selecting open record. That one says null, so it's not going to open anything. But if it did have a record, it would open it. You can do other things like update records. Maybe I've got people that are reviewing for how accurate addresses are, things like that. I could go in and interactively update those as I'm working in my dashboard. And the other thing too is you notice we've got all our open cases here. These are elements inside Service Cloud. And these can also interact with our dashboard. So as we go through and search for stuff, I can see the actual records here in Service Cloud, and it's all part of the same experience. Now, you might have noticed we've got this little guy hanging out up here on the top. This is, well, it says Einstein Copilot. I think we stopped using the Copilot word. I guess it's still in the UI. But this is an agent, right? This is where you can go and you can ask questions of this agent, and it will do its best to give you answers. So I could say something like, show me the top 10, what are these, CSRs, customer service requests. Let's see what it comes back with. It's going to try and interpret that. Let's see if my semantic model is good enough for it to figure out what the heck it is I'm asking, or if it's going to go, I don't know. I don't know what you're saying. Let's see, it's coming back with an answer. Couldn't find relevant performance measure. Yeah, because I didn't tell it what top 10 means, right? So again, making sure that we define that stuff so that when I do ask it a question, I get an answer back that makes sense. But one place we can definitely go ask questions, because it's built into our data set, is with our Pulse Analytics. So as I mentioned, this is almost identical to what you have in Tableau Cloud if you're using Pulse metrics. Pulse will go out there and proactively look at this stuff. It will look across all of the metrics you've subscribed to. So each metric is going to have its own card. And it will say, what are the biggest things that happened here? What's the thing that was unexpected based off of the trend previous to today or this week that I think I should call out? And it will give us this summary up at the top. So even if you're not paying attention to the visualizations and the cards, maybe I've got hundreds of cards, so I don't want to look through all those. It will call out the top 3 or 4 things just at the very top and give me a little readable summary. So maybe I don't even want to look at it. I just want a screen reader to read it to me. It can totally do that. So this just gives you a way to get proactive insights on things before you have to go in and find them yourself. Now, for each of these metrics, I get a high-level overview of what's going on with them. In this case, let's look at our closed CSR. And here I can see what my trend looks like over the last, what are we looking at? Since September 23rd, so the first of the month through yesterday. And then as I scroll down, I get some more insights about it. One thing you'll notice right here is I can ask it questions. So if I do this, I might say, what neighborhood had the most cases? And I misspelled that. Let's see if it catches that. It's usually pretty good at, or at least being forgiving. So we'll say which neighborhood had high close CSR. You'll notice in Pulse, it's kind of giving us a little helping hand, right? It's like, which one of these do you mean? Like, I'm gonna throw out 3 things that I think you mean, and you can pick the one that you need. So in this case, I think this is a New York data set. We can see West Queens had the most closed cases this month so far. So when you're in here and you're working with this, you can also tell it, you know, this was good or bad. And as you do that, it starts learning what it is that you care about, so that if you give it that feedback and you start telling it like, yeah, I know about that, I don't care about it, it'll stop putting it in your summary, right? It'll still show up. It's just that it knows, all right, you probably don't care, so I'm not gonna elevate that. Yeah, Jen.
Is that feedback specific to you logged in? So if you like something that somebody else doesn't, it'll customize it to that person?
Yes.
Okay.
So it'll be customized to you, but it also takes it collectively. So if you get a whole lot of people saying thumbs down, it'll be like, ooh, like maybe this is not something I should rate highly for a brand new user who doesn't have any preferences. So it will take that both cumulatively and individually. One of the other cool things too is when you're in here and it says Discover Top Insights, we ask the question, but it's going to pre-populate questions it thinks you might want to ask as well. Now, when you're in desktop, it just feels kind of lazy. But if you're on your phone, it's super helpful because now I don't have to be on my phone trying to type in a question. Instead, I can go, oh yeah, that's probably the one I want. Which subdepartment had the highest closed? And when I click on that, it gives me that visualization broken out. So I can drill into this really easily. Now, all of these are metrics. So that means one thing, one measurable thing that I'm caring about, right? This is not going to replace your dashboard. As a matter of fact, we have it as an element in the dashboards that we just showed. But when I have some high-level KPI that I care about and I want to keep an eye on, this is a great way to do that. And then too, since this is using data sources that are already in, if you're in Tableau Cloud, they're already there. Or if you're in Tableau Next, they're already in Data Cloud. They're also sources for your dashboards. So you see a metric, oh no, alarm's going off, right? Something's wrong. I can go, I can log in, look at my dashboard, and do a deeper analysis about what's actually happening behind the scenes. So just another way that we can interact with that data. And let's see. If you're curious about what it looks like when you build out Tableau Next dashboards, there you go. This is going to look kind of similar to Web Edit in Tableau, right? When I go to edit this, I'll get those same bars that I get. It's the same layout, same marks card. The marks are a little different on there. So I mentioned it's not a one-for-one, but you'll notice all the similar features that you've got already in Tableau. So we want to make sure that that experience is the same. So you're not, in a whole new world, not knowing where to go or where to navigate. So as I mentioned, oh, there's a screenshot. So there's our, our edit view inside Tableau Next. So you can see, as I mentioned, we've got all of our data off to the left-hand side, our marks card, our filters, our columns and rows across the top, just like you would have if you're using Web Edit in Tableau. So also very similar to Tableau Desktop. The whole idea here, just like in Tableau, we want you to iterate quickly, right? We don't want you to be stuck on, oh no, I went down the wrong path. Now I've got to back up and build a new visualization. Just like in Tableau, I want to swap columns and rows, super easy. I want to change my viz type. Super easy, right? We want to keep this stuff as accessible and flexible as possible. You can use calculations, filters, all that stuff as well. It's going to work the same. One other cool thing I'll mention, those agents there to help you out. As you're working in Tableau Next, you can always bring up that agent and say, hey, can you give me the net revenue? And maybe you've got gross and you've got expense, right? It's smart enough to figure out typically what you're asking for. It'll come back and say, is this what you want? And if you say yes, it'll create those calculations for you. So you always want to have a hand on the controls, but make it as fast as possible for you to build out these visualizations. So also like Tableau, we want you to explore data natively and intuitively and give you the ability to do things like forecast data. So some of those analytics features that you see in Tableau Desktop and in Tableau Server or Cloud, you have those here as well. And as you asked Jen, yeah, personal insights, right? As we build this stuff out, you can see Tableau Next over on the side, and we give it feedback, it's going to start to remember what it is that we're telling it. So it'll get smarter, or at least learn what it is that we care about as we work with it. So this is a little different than our normal experience with Tableau. Centralized hub for collaborative building. Now, I love going in and browsing projects and seeing what people have set up. This is very much a flattened structure that we have in Tableau Next as of right now. This is changing, so we're always working on making it more intuitive and advanced, but what you will have is the ability to go in and see what assets are out there, what you have access to, and if you don't have access, you won't see it. So that is one thing to note about it. We'll come back to our home, and you get an experience similar to this, where I can say citizen services requests, that one I was just looking at here, I can go click in, or maybe I want to see open CSRs. I think that was the metric we were looking at a moment ago. I can click into that as well and see it here. So as I'm browsing through, I'm only going to see stuff that I have access to through permissions. I'll also point out we're leveraging Data Cloud. So if you have row level security, maybe I can only see this segment of my data, my object or table, then that's going to apply here as well. You are logged in, it knows who you are. It's not going to show you stuff that you don't have access to the underlying data for. So that is another nice piece. Once you set up those permissions, you don't have to worry about, well, then I connected with a read-only account and it can see everything. And then I published it, and anybody who could see that could see whatever the read-only account could see, and they could see everything, and that was bad. Instead, it knows who you are, so all of that stuff just flows through. We don't have to worry about inadvertently exposing something that we shouldn't, as long as you have it correctly set up in the source itself.
Can I ask
Yeah.
if you're doing a live connection from something like Snowflake,
Mm-hmm.
and you're doing row security in Snowflake, would you be able to leverage that?
Yes. So my understanding is for those types of connections, it's going to be based off of your login. And as long as you have, now you have to set up the security between Snowflake and
Sure.
Data Cloud, right? So that it knows you are this person here and you are this person here. But yeah, it would only show you what you're exactly.
Thanks.
All right, so we visualized some stuff. Cool. We built some dashboards. What do I do next? I take action on it, right? As I mentioned, if we've got stuff that's already in the platform, then we know it, right? We know what a case is. We know who a person is, things like that. So you have the ability to just go out and do those actions. You see that in the middle here, make Salesforce record action, right? So if we're in there, we're working on service cases is the one I'm kind of using here as an example. And I want to post about it, right? Maybe I want to start a chat about it. Maybe I want to put it in Slack and start having a conversation about it. I can do all of that stuff directly in the dashboard. So in Tableau Classic, typically you're building out like URL actions, things like that. Here, it's just going to work pretty much out of the box. You do have control over which ones you allow people to see in your dashboard. So it's not like, Wild West, but you don't have to worry about configuring all those individually. If you do have URL data, though, you can still navigate to URLs and use things like variables and parameters and things like that to feed those URLs. So in this case, what is this? LinkedIn is our example, right? So this is a LinkedIn search for keywords. And if I'm looking for a person who happens to be in my report, I can hand that person in and have it pull back that URL for me. And this last piece, trigger a flow. For those of you familiar with Salesforce, flows basically just take something and put it somewhere else, right? It's like a lightweight ETL process, similar like what you would do in Tableau Prep. It could take action on a record inside that application. Maybe update a case to close or send a notification, things like that. Usually these are more complex actions, but you can trigger those from your dashboards as well. That, I will note, is also something that you can do in Tableau. It's just kind of a pain in the butt to configure. So here it's a lot easier. You just pick the one you want to. Turn insights into action. Well, we all know about this, right? That's kind of what we do in general when we're taking data, putting it on a dashboard. We want to take that and we want to act on that data. With the integrations, this puts you a little bit closer, right? It keeps you in the flow of work for what you're doing so that you're not doing the swivel chair where I, go find something. Oh, cool. Now let me go over here and log into this other system to do something about it. Instead, we want to put all of that in the same space so that you're not leaving one experience to go to another and doing that context switching. And then a Salesforce record action. So I just talked about this. This is all about, if I've got a record that I want to open, post, pull, I can do any of those things just natively. Trigger flow, we're not going to talk about that. We already did. But here's where it gets a little more interesting, right? Because these things that we talked about so far are mostly all things that you can kind of do, whether it was like a little difficult to make it happen, you could still pretty much do it. And whether you realize you were using a semantic layer or not, you were. It just happened to be pretty much an individualized semantic layer, or at least by dashboard or by data source. In this case, we're taking all this stuff and bringing it together. And ultimately, the reason for this is because we want to leverage that stuff inside agents. So there are a few skills for our agents that you can enable that sit on top of all of this. Data Pro, Concierge, and Inspector. What are these? So Concierge, that's going to be a Q&A. So when I ask a question, like unfortunately I asked you that question, it didn't come back with a good answer. If I turn on my Concierge, that's going to allow it to look at the data that I have in that semantic layer in Data Cloud that maybe I've exposed through my dashboard and embedded in a page, and then say, all right, what is it you want to know about this data? So similar to what we were looking at in Tableau Pulse, but more advanced, because what Concierge allows us to do is ask a question, and then ask a next question, and then ask a next question, and keep it all in context. So it's not individual questions. Instead, it's a conversation about what's happening with my data. Inspector. So again, a little bit similar to what we're doing in Pulse, proactive insights, right? This is going to give us the ability to say, hey, there's something up with this, so that when, in this case, Tableau Next looks at it, it's doing the work for us before we ever wake up, right? When that data gets loaded at 3 in the morning, or maybe it's a data stream that's constantly loaded, it's doing the work for us and then giving us the heads up about what's going on. And then Data Pro, this is basically an AI agent to help you build out things. So that when I'm like, I want to build a donut chart, I think, for this, it'll be like, yeah, I got that for you. You don't have to worry about doing the dual access thing and all that and stacking your marks. Instead, I'll just build it for you. So you still have control over all of that. You still have the ability to go in and edit it, but it basically is automating a bunch of that stuff based off of your request. So this is what Concierge typically looks like. So similar to what I had up, where we saw the agent. Now in this case, if you're asking it a question, you asked it for the opportunities with the highest amounts, right? And it's returning it as a bar chart. So it's intuitively going like, what makes the most sense, like as far as how I want to display this? Now from here, I can tell you, if you were to click into this, you could use this as a jumping on point for building out a Tableau Next dashboard. So if I asked it a question that said, show me the neighborhood with the most potholes in these service requests, it could give me a chart that comes back, and then I could say, let me take this and start building my dashboard off of it. So it's another way to kind of jumpstart that journey into doing the analysis around what our data is telling us. So ask it a question in natural language, right? That's where we start. Understand the data with visualizations. These are those metrics that we were looking at, and they're embedded in a dashboard. And then see how the analysis was conducted. For each of these, you can peel this back and see what's actually happening underneath. So if you're worried about AI work slop, I don't know if you've heard that term yet, but you can go and you can check the homework and make sure that it's doing exactly what it is you want it to do. What's the intent here? Get accurate responses and resolve ambiguities. So this is something you can also use to go back, and that semantic layer we talked about, go back there and say, did I build this out correctly? Maybe I need to go refine it, right? Everything's a cycle. Unfortunately, there is no end all be all, and then we're all done and we go home and we're happy. There's always something that we're going to have to iterate on and update. So we just want to make that as easy as possible for you to identify those things and then go back and update them. Inspector. So smarter alerts, right? In this case, we've got a phone. Yeah, go ahead, Olivia. Oh, it's 5 minutes. Gotcha. I'll speed up. So Inspector, as I mentioned, this gives us proactive insights, right? So we set this for alerts and key metrics, and it's going to give us a heads up before something bad happens. So before that user calls you and says, hey, my dashboard's all messed up, or hey, this metric's off, you get the notification in your email, in Slack, Teams, on your phone, wherever you want to get it, and then you can go fix it before anybody else sees it, and you've saved yourself a huge headache, and you're also building some trust with your users, right? They know that, hey, maybe your data's not perfect, but you're on top of it. Data Pro. So as I mentioned, this is helping us build out things like visualizations. Also, when we build out things like that semantic layer, what are the relationships between these things? We can tell it, help me out here. So I know it's kind of small. If you look up at the top, this says suggested relationships. You can turn that on when you're building out your data model. And if you do, it will look at that data model and go, oh, what do we have? Accounts and products. And I know that products are associated with accounts, so I'll just go ahead and build that link for you. And I know that those are associated with opportunities. So essentially, it's doing a bunch of the, kind of obvious work, I guess, for you, so that you don't have to waste your time doing that stuff. Instead, you can go, yeah, that's correct. And you can move on and build those models and build in probably the things that it doesn't know or the things it's not going to see. Maybe things that aren't named correctly, maybe things that have weird relationships that you have some institutional knowledge about and nobody else does. So just gives you a way to interact with that. And of course, all in natural language. Enriching those agents with analytic skills, right? Whole idea here, we want to get people closer to data, and I love dragging and dropping and double clicking, but a lot of people like to have a conversation. They want to use tools like a chat bot, something of that nature, like Concierge, to go in and ask a question and have visualizations and even dashboards built out for them. And I can tell you right now, as it is, we can build out visualizations for you pretty well just by asking it to do something. The North Star here is that you can ask for something and ultimately get a dashboard. So that's where we're going, where we want to make this stuff as quick as possible so that instead of focusing on all the broad strokes, you can focus on the details. So I'm going to hop through these. If you're in sales, right, this is a way to prioritize top opportunities, understand performance, identify account white space, and to do it faster. If you're doing service stuff, identify common issues, track service performance, understand and improve CSAT. And this is a big one, especially I feel like I work with government for the most part. We don't care about sales too much, but we do care a lot about service. And this is one of those things where I can use this stuff to do my job better and impact the lives of the citizens who live in the state. Marketing. So if we're tracking conversion rates, right? I'm sending out emails. I want people to respond to this thing, do this thing, be part of this program. I can see who's responsive, who's not, where do I need to focus my efforts, those kind of things. We can do things like identify target segments. I talked about segmentation a little bit, building out those groups across multiple applications. You can do that here, leverage it, and then feed that back into the application where we are doing that outreach. And then do things like predict customer churn. So someone comes in and they leave, they're unhappy. Why are they unhappy? Let's go fix that. All right, we're at the end, I promise. Tableau Marketplace, what is this? You've got assets that you want to build out, and you're like, I know someone's built this before. Think about this as a place to go and download templates, things like that. Even share your stuff, reuse assets so that you don't have to keep doing the same thing over and over again. It's probably been done before. And then public, that's where you can distribute and monetize solutions. So if you're building really cool dashboards and you want to put it in that marketplace, you can do that, and you can say, you know what, pay me $1 for my dashboard. And yeah, they can pay you $1 for your dashboard template. I haven't seen how lucrative that is yet, so I don't know if that's a great idea, but you can totally do it if you want to. I'm all about free. I like sharing. As I mentioned, if you want to create templates, this is what it looks like when you go out and browse. You can see what the templates look like, and you go, yeah, that looks pretty good. I want that one. Pull it in, and then point your data at it. And then lastly, apps for Salesforce. So since it's in Salesforce, that's where Data Cloud is, that's where Tableau Next is. All those apps work with it. We know what those records are, so they can associate directly back to the application that you're in. So whether it's service, sales, marketing, or any of the industry-specific ones, if you're doing nonprofit, if you're doing GovCloud stuff, all of that stuff is going to work natively there. And then along with this, you also get out-of-the-box insights for every cloud. What does that mean? There's basically pre-canned dashboards in here for you. So if you're adding Tableau Next to what you've got already, and you're like, hey, it sounds like a lot of work to build out all these dashboards, well, don't worry. A bunch of them are already built for you, and you basically just turn them on. And the last thing I'll talk about, Slack. Is anybody using Slack here? Right on. Okay, we got a few. Hey, you're supposed to be using Teams. Don't use Teams. Anyways, no, sure, use both. Teams is great. I like Slack better. I always have, even before it was part of Salesforce. But you can take all this stuff and you can put it directly in Slack. I will say, everything that we're doing in Slack, there is a push to do all of this stuff in Teams as well. I just know that it's not quite on par. It's a little easier when you own the messaging platform. You get a little more access to dev resources that way. But yeah, anything you put in there, if you've got this tied into your Salesforce platform, it knows who you are. So any of those insights, you're going to get them for you, not for everybody. It's updatable. So if you post something in here and it updates, you'll see the update in Slack. So you know that what you get is relevant and on time. So you're not just posting a static image. It actually is an interactive element. And then, of course, from there, you can navigate back into the place it came from. So with that, Tableau powers all of Salesforce. So whenever we're looking at our own data, and I can tell you because I was just on the phone with my boss this morning talking about how we're looking at our own data using Tableau to point back at Salesforce data. We use this, we really believe in, if we're gonna sell something to you, we wanna make sure that it's worthwhile, right? We're gonna use our own stuff. So with that, we have been driving heavily towards how do we make this the best tool that we can, and using it with all the different platforms that we have across Salesforce. So I hope everybody enjoyed that. I haven't put anybody to sleep.
Could you fall asleep with the way you talk?
Well, thanks. If you want to know more about Tableau Next, you're like, hey, I would love to get hands-on with this, because I know it hasn't been super easy to get hands-on with. Tableau Plus, I don't want to get into licensing. This is why I'm an SE and not an AE, for those who know what that term means. But Tableau Plus is a license that will get you both. It will get you into Tableau Cloud. It will get you Tableau Plus. It will get you Data Cloud. So you basically get all the toys and you can start exploring that way. Or more at salesforce.com/Tableau-Next, or you can talk to this guy in the back of the room. Jeff, does everybody know Jeff?
Say hi to
All right,
Jeff.
hi Jeff, this is Jeff. So Jeff is my counterpart at Salesforce, and yeah, he'd be happy to talk to you about that. So thank you, everybody. Now we'll turn it back over to Jen.
Thanks, Ben. Okay. Tooltips. So the last several meetings, we have been trying to do a bit more of a hands-on piece, something in the software, just so that you always have at least a little bit of that content for every one of our meetings. And we asked in our last registration, what do you all want to know about? And tooltips is what at least one of you asked for. We thought, you know what, we haven't covered tooltips, maybe ever. So why not? Let's talk about some tooltips. So I am going to cover quite a few things. We only have about 15 minutes. So just make sure we're all on the same page. By tooltip, what I'm referring to is when you hover your mouse over something in Tableau, you get a little box that gives you info. So that's what you write. So I'm going to give you a couple of very simple improvements. If you don't have time or inclination, or your clients just don't care, your users don't care, what are at least a couple of simple things you can do to make your tooltips better? Then we're going to talk about some more sophisticated things you can do. You may have seen other people use these to great effect, or maybe you have dynamic text within your tooltip that shows you a different color based on whether the metric is up or down, or a special icon or something. So I'll give you an example of that. And then of course, we're going to talk about viz and tooltips, because that is one of the coolest ways to really up your tooltip game. So not just the basics of how to do it, although I will certainly cover that, but also maybe some of the more subtleties that you might not have really known what to do with that, or why you might do that. So we'll get into those as well. Plus, I have a couple of recommendations, my personal thoughts about tooltips. To my knowledge, there really isn't a large research base about this. If you do try to find what is the best practice in tooltips, you'll mostly get people's opinions. If you do want anything that's even sort of on the research side, I think web design is really a place to go. They've been using tooltips for many years, and you might find some good resources and user experience. And then I have a couple of tricks for you as well. So my personal recommendations, I have a couple of these. I believe that if it's something that people really just need to know one time, like a definition for a main term that the dashboard is about, don't put that so that it pops up all the time when people are hovering around. Put that somewhere, maybe under a question mark icon or an info icon, so they can read it, get to it when they need it, and then they don't have to think about it again, maybe until the next time they come to the dashboard. Also, I don't see the point in having a tooltip that tells you exactly the same thing as what you're seeing on the screen. I rarely have tooltips for my KPIs unless I'm providing additional context, or maybe if I'm worried a label is cut off or something, I'll put a tooltip there. Otherwise, I don't do redundant tooltips. A lot of my data tables, no tooltips, because you already see the header, you already see the data value. I don't need to hover my mouse over and see those same pieces of information. My third tip, I actually think Tableau's default tooltips aren't too bad, but I think where it really falls down are for things like table calculations, where it just describes what it did in the calculation that is going to be quite incomprehensible to your average user. So if you do nothing else with your tooltips, at least pay attention to those and reword them so that it makes a little more sense to somebody. Percent of total by column, not super informative for people. I also think a step people maybe don't take as often as they ought to is thinking about who your audience is. If you've got a busy executive who looked at this dashboard every day, they know their data inside and out, they just want the answer, your tooltip can be pretty brief and to the point, and maybe just the data, maybe just a quick comparison to the previous year or something. On the other hand, if you're building for somebody who maybe doesn't look at this very frequently, is maybe for the general public, some of us here in government, then maybe think about using something that's more like a sentence structure, or something that walks them through what is this data point and what does it need. So I think there are a lot of tools available to us in building our tooltips, and the way that we go about them and what we put into them should depend on who is going to be the person using them. Also think about, is your audience going to really be interacting with your dashboard online? Or in all reality, are they going to subscribe to it, get it in their email, take a quick look at it, and never actually go to the dashboard, in which case they're not even going to be using a tooltip. So that leads to my next point. If it's important content, don't bury it or hide it in the tooltip, because if they don't interact with it, don't know about tooltips, or just get subscriptions, they're never even going to see it. Sometimes I go out at Tableau Public and I see incredible work, and then there's a really amazing tooltip, and I find myself just wanting to keep looking at it, and it's small, and I think, why didn't they just make that a viz on the screen? This is really important information. I don't know why they buried it in the tooltip. So I think tooltip should just be a little bit of extra info, not another main story. And then finally, another setting that I see people tend to just leave as the default is to have tooltips be responsive, which means the second you hover over the point on the screen, it's popping up. And that can be really distracting. If you're just trying to move your mouse from point A to point B, you're trying to do a demo and the tooltip's popping up. If you hadn't realized this, you can actually change that setting so that your tooltips only show on hover. When your user pauses on the data point for a second or two, I timed it once upon a time, but I forget what that is, then it responds. That's super helpful, especially if it is a larger tooltip, so it's not just popping up all over the place while they're on the screen. And I will be sharing this deck afterwards. I see some of you taking notes, which is wonderful, but we'll make this available as well. Okay, now for the trick part, and I will show you some of these within Tableau, but just wanted to have them in the deck as well. I think people overlook this all the time. There are things that you can set at the workbook level that apply to your tooltips, and then it will format all of your tooltips like that for the rest of the workbook. So I'll show you where that is in case you didn't know about that. And it's not just tooltips, there's other things there too. Tooltips are text-based, unless you bring in a sheet. So that means emojis are fair game. Unicode, alt code, you can use characters, symbols. This little happy party face emoji, we're gonna put him in a tooltip because you can do that. Tooltips can be reset. So once you start editing your tooltip, it stops automatically bringing new things in, which can be really frustrating. You can hit reset and go back to where you were, which can be really helpful. You can also copy them. What I like to do is get a tooltip just the way I want it, copy it, bring it into another sheet. And yeah, I might have to change out which data field it's referring to, but if I've got that formatting just the way I like it, I can borrow that in another tooltip. Same with viz and tooltips. It'll tell you can't bring in the same sheet that you've already used. But that's if you try to bring it in from the menu. If you copy it in, you can absolutely use the same sheet in more than one viz and tooltip. Or if you edit the code, you can use the same sheet in more than one viz and tooltip. Why might you want to do that? I'm not sure. Probably not a lot of cases for that, but you can do it if you're so inclined. And then my last trick, you maybe have seen these in other people's work or weren't sure how the heck they did that. There's at least a couple of ways of putting a divider line to kind of break apart the content of your tooltip. You can use Unicode characters, just put a bunch of the lines together, or I'll show you the way you can do it with a blank worksheet. Okay, I know we're a little short on time, and I can't actually see my finger box.
I'm watching.
Okay, I don't know what I did with my phone, I'm a mess. All right, well, Olivia will keep us on track. I just want to show you a couple of examples from other people's work. So I have 3 to show you. The whole viz is on the left. Again, this is going out, so you can look at this more in detail. And then the tooltip is on the right. So in this case, they chose the sentence form, which I think is perfect for this type of viz because it's probably an unfamiliar audience and it's repeating info that is in the viz itself. So blue always means renewables, so it says renewables. May was already below it, but it also tells us a new piece of information, that 36%. That's extra context that is now available in the tooltip that wasn't in the viz. So I thought that was a great example of the sentence form of tooltip. Another amazing viz looking at top albums, taking a closer look at what the tooltip looks like. So this one, there isn't actually a lot of sophistication in terms of what's in there, but you can see how she used just font. She actually made basically 3 header levels. We've got the biggest font for the topmost thing. What is its rank? Second level header, album name, and then the third pieces are kind of the third tier. There is color coding in this, so that's one way to bring that in. In this case, she's echoing the colors in the viz itself. So that's a little bit more of an advanced tip. But you can do a lot with just spacing things out and changing your font size to make a good tooltip. And then third example before we jump into Tableau. So this one is a pretty basic viz, but you can still bring in a lot of extra context on the tooltip. And here's an approach I hadn't actually, you're gonna be kidding me.
I mean, we can go a little
Okay.
bit.
Sorry, that was a 5-minute warning for those of you on the line.
This is really panicking people. It was meant to help.
Yeah, no, that's okay. No way, that was 20 minutes. Okay, so she took the approach of just the facts at the top, right? So if you do have somebody super familiar with this dashboard, they can just take a look, there's my numbers, done. But she also put the sentence format of that below, divider line, like I was mentioning, and there's a dynamic piece in here. You see the up arrow with the 7%. If it were down, she actually has a different icon with a different color. A great use of that, giving that extra context to the data point. Okay, with my 4 minutes, we're gonna continue like I'm saying.
10, well, to go give me another 5. That's fine.
All right, so I built a semi-basic dashboard just so we have a few different types of elements to play with. So first thing I want to show you is that workbook formatting. So if you have not explored this format workbook menu, get familiar, friends, because it's going to save you so much time. The tooltip one is right here. So I actually already changed this one because you can tell by that little dot that's off to the left. That means this is not the default anymore. I could reset it to defaults, but I changed it. I find the 10-point font to just be generally too small. So instead of going tooltip by tooltip and making them larger, set at the workbook level. I always want them to be 11. Doesn't mean you can't overwrite it. You can. This will just make your default tooltips, whatever you set here, and then you can still, on an individual basis, change your tooltips. So that's a super helpful way to at least start from a size and a color. You might have seen the color was in there too. You can set your color how you like it. So tip number 1. Okay, so the basic formatting that we were talking about, so these are just the defaults. So I built a little map. I've got region and state and sales on there. It just puts them in alignment. It's not terrible, I don't think. However, it could be better, right? And in the interest of time, instead of building this out, I will just open this one and show you what I did. So I just made a couple of small changes. I took away the label of state, province, and we're just going to show that field. And country region is probably not necessary with just Canada and the US, but imagine you had a larger map. Maybe it's helpful to have it in there. Let's make it smaller, de-emphasize it, make it a little lighter in color. You can do things with both size and color to still have the info there, but not have it take up as much attention. Spacing is another easy way to take the Tableau's default and just make it a little more user-friendly. All I did was put a hard return in there to buy some breathing room before the metric. And then you can do little things like add a $sign. I could have formatted the measure, but maybe I just want it formatted with a $sign in the tooltip, so I can do that here. And then if I take a preview of that, we can say, yeah, that's looking pretty good. And then I can show you on the map as well. So just a couple of tiny changes that just took me a few seconds to do, and suddenly the tooltip looks a lot better. I do like having that top level be a higher.
Jen, in the preview, it said Alabama, Canada. Was that just because it was just
Just a preview.
Just a preview?
Yeah,
Okay.
don't trust the data
Don't trust
in
the
a
preview.
trust the format.
Okay,
Yes.
all right, thanks.
Okay, so I also built one that was in more of the sentence formatting. So here, all I did was I just took the elements from its default and just rearranged them, right? It gave me category, it gave me region, it gave it, as I was bringing the pieces onto my viz, it was putting them in the tooltip. It'll keep doing that until you edit your tooltip. Once you've edited it, it's like, oh, it's you're taking over now. I don't need to do this anymore. So beware of that. You might have to manually put things back in your tooltip if you have edited at any point. But I took those pieces, just turned them into a sentence, did some things in bold, some things not, so that it reads more nicely, more of a complete sentence in case somebody were unfamiliar with this data. I wish we had 1 minute.
We're giving you more time.
Giving me more
You're
time.
about to hit the 5-minute mark.
Okay, sounds good.
Jeff and I have coordinated. with
Okay, awesome. Because I gotta get to the good stuff, right? So the other thing I wanted to show you is that example of having some sort of dynamic text in the tooltip. We're getting a little more sophisticated here. So here is my KPIs. Oops, that's the done one. I'll show you how to do this. Here's my KPIs. And if I wouldn't just repeat the amount and the category in the tooltip. But if I wanted to show something like, is this above or below where we're supposed to be? I might have something like a sales target parameter that maybe my user fills in, maybe I do. And then what you need is one calculation for each of the different colors or shapes that you want in your tooltip. So in this case, I just need above or at target and below. I only need 2 options. If you wanted to show 3 different groupings, you need 3 different calcs. And the reason for that is you need one for each color that you're going to set. So I'll just show you one of them. So my above target calculation is if my measure, sum of sales in this case, exceeds or meets my target parameter, and we're going to say target was met. And the other calculation is exactly the same, except it says if not met, then did not meet. And only one of those can be true at a time. It either is or it isn't at target. And so that's where the magic happens. is I bring both of these calculations to my tooltip. And then in my tooltip, I gotta clean this up. What happened? It's not letting me edit this.
Focuses.
If I have to use this trackpad, things are gonna go very badly. Why is it not letting me edit my tooltip? All right, hang on, let me try canceling and coming back. Not sure why. Wow, okay.
Do you have to check show tooltip on that box?
But I had tooltip off. Thank you so much. That is exactly what I did wrong. Amazing crowd help. That was not a task that was not realizing I had that. Okay, so what you would do, and I would probably do a little more for me, but you put them side by side because only one can be true at a time, so only one is ever going to render. So I put them in, and then maybe I do a little formatting, right? Maybe if it's below target, that's red and bad. For above, that's blue, that's great. So then when I hover over, I get my dynamically formatted, ooh, there's blue. We exceeded our target. It's that simple. Yay, blue. You just need a calc for each of your different colors. And that's also where we could put in the emoji, right? So I could say, met target, exclamation mark, emoji, party face, yeah. Okay, we're gonna apply that. And can use Unicode, all kinds of cool stuff in there.
Or a sad face.
You could do a sad face. Most people just do arrows, but you could do emojis. Okay, and then for Vision Tooltip. So for this area graph here, it's decent for showing the high level trends of what these different categories we're doing in the year, but maybe our user also might want to have a sense of what's going on in the month. So I already went ahead and built out a monthly sales. So I just took my same categories, done the same color, keep my color scheme, same measure, brought in my region, because I want that in there too, all my stuff, hit all the headers because I don't need for those to show again. So you have to have your sheet ready to go, which I did. And then what you're going to do is edit your tooltip and you're going to insert sheet and bring in your monthly sales. I usually just start with letting it be the default and see if I get what I was hoping for. And in this particular case, that is actually what I was hoping for. It looks like it's only giving me the right, the data for the region. And I would normally go validate this, but in the interest of time, we'll just say this is what I wanted, right? I just wanted it for the selected region, for the selected category, show me all the months for the selected year. Excellent. However, maybe what your user actually cares about is not so much what happened at the month level, but it's really hard with those stacked area charts to say what's going on between these three categories. I can kind of get a sense of what they look like, but I really want to compare those head to head. So instead, maybe what you want to do is have a chart like this where I'm going to show percent of total. What are each of these category members contributing to the total in that year, in that region? Okay. And so here's where a little bit of a more advanced Vision Tooltip comes in. So instead of the sheet that we have in here, I'm going to bring in the annual sales. Okay, we'll leave it at the default and see what happens. Oh, that's absolutely useless. That is not at all what I wanted. It's just one bar at 100%. And the reason that's happening is because when I left it at default, it's passing all the fields that this sheet and my Vision Tooltip sheet have in common. And I don't want it to pass everything through. What I want it to pass through is just the region. So I do want it to know what region is. So I'm replacing all fields in that filter statement with region. I put in a comma because I also want it to pass through the year. So I want it to show me in the given year, in the given region, how do the three categories compare to each other. So basically I'm taking category out by defining the two that I want. And now I get the viz that I was looking for. I get the three categories compared against each other for the region, for the year. So if you haven't played around with this text, the Vision Tooltip text, take a look at what's there. You can specify what fields are being filtered. You can change the height and the width. Maybe you want your tooltip to be a little wider to accommodate a wide graph. So lots of things you can do there. Fortunately, we're out of time. So that's all, so we can keep at least 2 people online going. I do have one question for you though. I know this was super bit of a whirlwind, and there was a lot more that I was going to show you. Is this helpful? Do we want to continue this type of thing, maybe even this specific topic in a future event? I've seen lots of nods to that. Okay. I'm assuming all of you have used a tooltip before, but frankly, there's a lot of things that you just do because it's how you've always done it. You don't necessarily know what else you could do. So one thing I want to point out is we didn't even get to, what the heck are these command buttons and selection by category? There's some powerful stuff in there. Or why is there this ruler up here? So, okay, I'm hearing you. We will
One
cover this next
question-
time.
One question from the chat. Have you dealt with screen readers with the tooltips?
They are working on that, and maybe Ben could speak to it. Historically, tooltips were problematic for accessibility reasons, but I think you all have made some improvements on that front or are making them in the near future. Yeah.
Yeah, actually in the upcoming release, I think, there's some ADA improvements. There's actually been a pretty strong focus on that. I think there's some requirements that are new for everybody, at least in government, to be following by the spring of next year. So yeah, things like being able to read those tooltips are some of the features that are being worked on in the development right now.
Thank you. That's what I thought as well.
Cool, and yeah, I do love the workbook level formatting. That's a pro tip right there. All right, so just to wrap up a bit here. Thanks to our speakers. I've really loved all of the content we've heard, and I've heard of Tableau Next stuff, but it was really great I felt like I learned a lot more today about how it's actually gonna go. So that's great. So here we are. If you're not already on the Tableau community on Slack, this is a relatively new thing in the last maybe 6 months. I forget the exact number, but you should be. It's great. I mean, if you want to like hobnob with all famous Tableau people, that's where they are. You know, and you can ask questions, get feedback on dashboards, or like share your feedback on people's questions. Yeah, it's really cool. Also, upcoming events. For those who don't know, we've been kicking off a Madison Tableau User Group Adventure Club. So not like technically a Tableau event, but more of a, like last time, let's go for a hike. This
Data
time,
nerds in the wild.
right, this time it's like, let's go to Schuster's Farm and do a corn maze, So if you're interested in that, that QR code is a Google form sign up just to be on the list to get those notifications because we don't want to spam everybody. And that also includes, we're kicking off a volunteer group, which is more like Habitat for Humanity. And I mean, not necessarily that, but like volunteering, not necessarily data volunteering.
Right.
Yeah.
Food bank.
Food bank, all sorts of stuff. Wisconsin Tug coming up October 14th. Milwaukee Tug, I haven't heard a date yet, but it's generally, we have a 3-month sequence of the 3 of us. And so that'll be in November. We're having our next meeting December 11th. We'll send out more info soon. And yeah, if you're able to go to Dreamforce, you should totally go. I hear amazing things. That's in San Fran in October or online.
And anyone, if I could just interject real quick, anyone who has been around the Madison Tug for a while and might know Adam Miko, he's our guest speaker for the Wisconsin Tug.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, he's doing some chat GPT stuff with us. So I just wanted to put that plug in there.
That's awesome.
And so we're gonna do some giveaways. Everyone should hopefully have a number on your card here. And so we're gonna do the bingo hopper.
I've been waiting for like several months. to see.
Okay. What do we got?
72.
Oh, that's me.
Yay!
All right.
We have a swag over here if you'd like to come pick something out. And then I need a number between 1 and 6 for our virtual attendees.
4.
Bart, Kimberly is our winner for our virtual group. So we have a gift card for Bart. And Bart, if you, yay, okay, we got a yay. Bart, if you can direct message me your email, that'd be wonderful. I'll make sure we connect with you and get you your gift card.
Awesome. And with that, I think that is our agenda for the meeting part of the meeting. And so, yeah, stick around, have some snacks,
Please have snacks.
talk to people. I think there are some data games you can play.
Or bingo.
Yeah, whatever. Thanks all for coming.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.